it is earlier in the day. All right. So Parshat Acharei Mot, a fascinating Torah portion, in that the story line is dramatic in the sense what it comes to the aftermath, and the subject is also very important. Uh, the subject is the service on the holiest day of the year, the day of Yom Kippur. But let's back up a little bit. The name of the Torah portion means after the death of, and which is quite a stark title. Acharei Mot, after Mot, the death of, and it's Acharei Mot Shnei Bnei Aaron, after the death of the two sons of Aaron, B'karvatam Lifnei Hashem V'yimutu, when they brought a offering to God and they died. Right now, over here, we don't have the context of that offering. We don't have any more details. Just it seems to be what they brought an offering to God and they died. Right? That's sounds like a pretty severe reaction from the Holy One for somebody who brings him a gift, right? But we know from a couple Torah portions ago exactly what occurred. Right? Parshat Shmini tells us the story of what the two sons of Aaron did. Right? The day that was meant to be the truly joyful inauguration of the Mishkan, not only in the sense that this was the first time that service was going to be performed officially, right? For the first 7 days, the service was being done by Moshe, and so there was already all the steps of the process, but this was the first official day, and what made it particularly significant was that the presence of God for the first time was going to truly descend into the space of the Mishkan. Right, it was one of the ways Aaron knew that he had done it successfully. Originally, he did the service on that day, and the first few moments, the fire did not descend, and Aaron was really, to a certain degree, was very perturbed by this. And he turns to Moshe and says, "Why did you set me up for this public embarrassment, this failure? I told you I was not deserving." In the role that I played in allowing the golden calf to come to pass, I don't feel like as it is, had a sense of that I was undeserving. But you insisted that it was the will of God that I be the Kohen Gadol and I serve, and so I did. And now publicly, God has rejected my offering, and the presence of God is not seen here. Moshe says that's not at all what it is. You've all offering, you've done everything. It says now let's daven together, and Hashem's presence no doubt will come. In fact, so they davened, and Hashem's presence descended. And all is wonderful, and the people are really basking in the glory of the moment. And then the two sons of Aaron go do something terrible. They rush into the Holy of Holies carrying pans of incense, and a fire descends from God and kills them on the spot. And this day of joy turns into a day of mourning, except for three people. Three people are not allowed to mourn this moment. And who are they?
Aaron,
Aaron, the father of these two young men, and Elazar and Itamar, the two younger brothers of these young men.
Dividing brothers.
The Kohen Gadol and the two other Kohanim that were replacing Nadav and Avihu were not allowed because they were on the clock. They had to serve, and so they were not allowed at that moment to mourn. And Moshe tells Aaron that the rest of the Jewish people will mourn that which God has taken. You have to continue with the service. And Aaron, to his credit, does not, like I'm sure, is obviously at that moment full of emotion, but he controls himself and he does the service, etc. And then this week's portion opens up after the death of the two sons of Aaron, and Moshe's admonishment to Aaron sets up the instruction of the rest of the parsha, which is that he says, "Al yavo b'chol eit ala kodesh." You cannot come whenever you desire into the holy, or in the holy of holies, into holiness, into this space. There's a time, there's a place, there's a protocol. And that is why the Parsha then continues and talks about the time when it is in fact proper to go into the Holy of Holies, and that is on the day of Yom Kippur. In the Holies, the Kohen would go every day, but into the Holy of Holies it was only done on Yom Kippur. But again, every part of the temple had its protocol, and so even into the Holy, where that's the first section of the Mishkan, the section that held the table of the showbread, the menorah, and the golden altar. Even there, though they were the Kohen slash Kohen Gadol was there on a daily basis, there was also a protocol. It didn't just get to walk in, to have a schmooze, as it were, right? Rather, there was the Kohen and the Kohen Gadol always had to follow protocol to the point where they were never allowed to sit at all in the Mishkan and the Beit HaMikdash. They were all when they were there, they were always in service, and as such, uh, uh, they had to do follow procedure. Even if it was daily, they should never ever get lax in the way they served. The Talmud tells an interesting anecdote. It says that each night the Kohanim and the Levim that were part of that rotation of the cohorts. Each family clan would divide into a cohort of the amount of Kohanim and Levim that were needed, and each one got to have a period in which they served in their rotation through the year. And so each Kohen honestly did not serve every day. Each Kohen probably was part of a clan cohort that served for about 2 weeks or so out of the year. But if it was your clan, it was your cohort's turn to serve in the Mishkan. There, you were on the clock. Really, your cohort was on the clock 24/7, even though there was only the operating hours in the Mishkan, were really from first thing in the morning, a little bit before first thing in the morning, till mid afternoon when the Karban Mincha was brought, the Karban Tamid Shel Bein Harbaim, the Karban that we call Mincha, our prayer service of Mincha is in place of, that was the end of, in a sense, public operating hours. Then there was other things had to do, including the burning of all the limbs that were brought over the course of all those operating hours. It would sometimes go deep into the evening, but at a certain point, the Mishkan kind of went to bed, which meant all the Kohanim who were serving really kind of ended their service, and what was left for the rest of the night was a honor guard. It was protection, not because they truly were afraid of attack. It wasn't a military guard; it was an honor guard. The Kohanim and the Levim would stand guard and stay awake through the night. Not all of them, but the Talmud talks about the amount and where they would be stationed, etc. And even in this, there was not allowed to be any laxness whatsoever. In fact, it says that if the one who was the overseer, the overnight director, as it were, would walk and do his rounds. And if he found anybody sleep at their post, it says that he would sharply rebuke them and wake them up. If they didn't wake up by his words, by his words, he had the right to hit them. And if he felt that this person needed to be taught a lesson, let's say this person was known to be lax, he could light his garments on fire.
Oh.
And so it says that when they could ask in Jerusalem, what is that sound that we hear? Oh, that's the sound of some young Kohen falling asleep on the duty and having his coat set on fire
Oh my
by
God.
by the overnight director. So there was no laxness whatsoever, even in the overnight honor guard duty. How much more so, obviously, in the times of the service. And that is a point, in a sense, to further expound on that the Mishkan, this parsha teaches us that there needed to be a sense of respect and gravitas for what this was, beyond, in a sense, what you would just kind of naturally, right? And to a certain degree, lahavdil alf, I don't want to make a big draw a comparison to this, but for example, the idea that Ronald Reagan would never walk into the Oval Office without a tie. a respect for what this represented. How much more so the Mishkan, and this was very the Kohanim were always very aware of this. The Mishkan is not the place for the people to serve God. Let's clarify that again. The Mishkan, the tabernacle, was not a place for the people to serve God, which would then make the Kohen Gadol the chief practitioner, as it were, right? The head honcho of this space. No, the Mishkan was God's house. The head honcho here is God.
what about
One minute, let me 1 second. The head honcho, the head honcho is God, and the Kohen Gadol is chief steward. It's an entirely different approach and perspective. You are the chief servant in this space. The space belongs to God. This Mishkan belongs to God. It's His house. It's not your place. It's not a place for human beings to go serve God. It's a place for God to exist among human beings, i.e., your position here is not one of some varied element of ownership, even if what you're owning here is a place for you to go serve a higher being. At most, even the Kohen Gadol himself is chief chamberlain, chief steward of a place where it was always very clear this place belongs to God, which is again why the majority of it was a place that the average person could not go into. And there's a space in it where even the Kohen Gadol was only allowed to enter 1 day a year. How would that make sense if this is the people's house? It's not the people's house. It's God's house. I'll pause here 1 second. I have Paula and then Jerry wanted to say something. Go ahead, Paula.
Quick question. Do
Sure.
we have information about how many Levim made up the honor guard?
The honor guard? Yes, we do know. The Kohanim served the Kohanim served in 3 places total, and the Levim served in 24 places total.
So it's 3 non-Kohen Gadol Kohanim, and then the rest were Levim.
Correct.
Believe me, I wouldn't be asking this if it weren't for a reason. Were these Kohanic honor guards in placed in specific places? And do we know what those are?
Yes. The first chapter of the Tractate of Tamid in the Talmud spends a significant amount of time discussing this.
And you don't have to go into it here in class. I'll look it up.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, now my question.
Yes.
Against the background of what you just said about the Mishkan, can you explain again for the 100th time, because it never gets into my skull, the meaning of the phrase that's over your, the V'yashanti b'tocham.
Right. That's the phrase that gives us a sense of what the space is. If this was the way most people translate a temple, or a temple, or not only translate a temple, but most temples are built, right, with a very different goal in mind. It's a place for the people to gather to serve whatever deity it is, right? So it's a people's place to serve any particular deity, but it's a place, and it doesn't necessarily reflect how involved or engaged that deity is going to be with the people, because ultimately that deity might just choose to not be involved, but the people still have to serve, and so they still need a place to serve, and so the physical location and the physical presence of this space is because the people need a place to come together and to gather and to serve. right? God says, no, you're not making this place for the people. The Asu li mikdash. You're making this place for me so that I can dwell amongst the people. This is my house on this block. I want to live on your block, says God. I want to live amongst you. And so you go to make me a house. Now, because that's God's
Wait a minute,
house and
I
that's what
want to
God's
live amongst you, but
amongst
you're
you.
not really allowed in here.
As I said, it's your house on your block, and you are allowed. You're not necessarily allowed in my bedroom, but I definitely want you in my living room. And that's what we do. Now that we know that God has an address on our street, we go to that address all the time, and we spend a lot of time with him at his address. It's
I thought
far
you
more
said,
powerful.
wait a minute, I thought you said that other than the Kohanim and the Leviim, no one's allowed in the Mishkan.
No, no, I said there are there's large places of the Mishkan where nobody is allowed in, other than the Kohanim.
Oh,
And
oh,
but and by all means, not the entirety of it. Of course, the Jewish people would come to the Mishkan and then obviously the Beit Hamikdash to bring offerings onto the altar, etc., etc. But for example, the place called the Holy, right, the Kodesh, that was not a place for anybody but Kohanim to be in.
right.
And
Okay,
the Holy of Holies, right, was a place where also the regular Kohanim and even the Kohen Gadol was not able to just go, right? And that was the whole point, right? Here you have the two sons of Aaron that just decided in their
Bingo.
zeal
Bingo.
to connect with
bingo
God
what?
that but to go to a place that was not for them to go. And
Right.
this is an important lesson. This is an important lesson because first of all, it does teach us something very important about things, which oftentimes gets forgotten. Love has boundaries. Many people think, oh, so if we're in love, we're in a loving relationship, we should just be able to come together and do whatever it is. And my space is your space, and your space is my space. And no. Just because we're in love and just because we have a passion for each other, etc., it doesn't mean protocol doesn't exist, right? Right? And there's proper protocol. You got to respect the relationship. Love is not enough. In a relationship, there has to be love and there has to be respect. What the two sons of Aaron forgot was that second part. Because love can be incredibly selfish, right?
Well,
There are no go zones in relationship. If I respect you enough, I give you a private space. I let you make private decisions. I let you, have things. It's like, me and my spouses are open books to each other. You know what? No, actually, the Rambam recommends as a point, a general point, that one person should not be found around their spouse always. Right? It actually ends up reducing the amount of respect because ultimately, like anything, like anything, um, uh, familiarity. You know the old expression,
familiarity breeds
familiarity
contempt.
breeds contempt. I don't know if
Right.
it has to breed contempt, but it does remove
Yeah.
a level, a sense of how precious something is, right? If you have something, if you have chicken every day, the most delicious thing, your favorite dish in the world. Oh, I want to have this every day. No, you don't. No, you don't. Right? You don't want to have this every day. I want to watch this film every day. No, you don't. I want to read this book again and again every single day. No, you don't. Right? And if Torah, for example, did not always have unplumbed depths, right? Then studying, if it was just repeating, it was just studying. If prayer was the same thing every single day, it wouldn't be good prayer. You actually have a responsibility to achieve a new depth. It says it should not be the Pirkei Avot says, it says that you have to make your prayer new. Point being that in relationships, and in this case, you don't say just because love, it means, oh, I love so much, so everything should be free and open access and just whatever. And like, what do you mean? What do you mean? We both love each other. I should be able to walk into the Holy of Holies, prostrate myself before God whenever I want. No, that's not the way it works. Because there needs to be respect, and this is very important in Yiddishkeit. You have many people, right? Uh, and think about this, that believe that if Judaism, if it's truly about a love of God, then I should really be able to tailor. I should really be able to connect to God in any way that's meaningful to me, right?
Right. Yeah.
I should be able to have Yiddishkeit on my terms,
Right.
right? And if I need to bring a guitar into the Beit Medrash, into the Beit Knesset and strum it and whatever it is, because
Right.
I want to express my love to God. right? If
Right.
I'm expressing my love to God, then I should be able to do it on my terms, as per whatever it is, because it's my fullest expression of my love. And you say, yeah, you're right. If it was entirely about love, if a relationship is entirely begins and ends with love, and
Right.
this is the way you express your greatest sense of love to God, you would be entirely correct. But
Well, can I interrupt for
well,
1 second?
but this expresses that a relationship, especially with God, or really truly any kind of relationship, there needs to be respect, and respect go in every loving relationship, in every loving relationship. And could make the argument, what do you mean? With my child, I don't have to respect my child. Oh, yes, you do, right? And too many parents forget that aspect of the relationship and try to be right parents that are involved in every little aspect of their child's life and don't even as they get older, et cetera, and don't understand that love is not enough in any relationship, even a relationship where to a certain degree you have the top down aspect of it, right? You're the parent, that's the child. No, you need to respect your child. For example, I heard this is that even as something as obviously in like major life decisions, and you can have input, and especially as the child's getting older, but even as something as simple and seemingly as innocuous as you want to go give the child a hug, right? Oh, come here, give me a hug. And the child right now, for whatever reason, is just not in the mood of a hug, right? Ah, get over here. You grab right. Ultimately, you're not. It's not going to be the end of the world, right? But to a certain degree, you indulged in what you wanted at the expense of what your child wanted.
Right.
So, because you feel so fiercely in love, so you at that point you expressed your love, but you did not express your respect for your child. Your child says, "I don't right now, not in the mood of being smothered." Right
Yes.
now, there are times where the child is not always aware of what they want, right? And that is also true. I'm not trying to kind of say that, oh, right? There's other people. I always ask my child, may I touch them, right? No,
Right.
let's not go overboard, right?
Yeah.
Having said that, right? There is a responsibility, and if it's true about a child, even a relationship suffused with unequivocal love, then for sure it is true of a spouse, right?
Yes.
And all the more so, one may say a parent, but one can make an argument even more for a spouse or even more for a parent. It doesn't make a difference. Respect, and that's much more so when the one that you're in love with and the one that's in love with you also happens to be the King of Kings, your Creator, etc. And this is what people oftentimes forget. They say, "Oh, I'm in love with God, and God's in love with me." So boundaries. It doesn't need to be boundaries. Al yavo b'chol eit al hakodesh. There are boundaries. Whether, and they say the thing about a boundary is whether in this moment you're you feel it intuit the need for this boundary intuitively or not, it's still there. That's why it's boundaries. Which means even if I'm not feeling it in the moment, I'm not feeling the boundary. I don't want it. Boundaries. Yes, Paul.
Like, something came up fairly recently. It had been my practice when my teacher walked into a room where I was, the students stand up.
Hmm?
But if the teacher says, please don't do that, I thought it should be respected, the desire of the teacher. What do you say?
True, and really what ends up how it comes down to is a kind of the sensibilities of a particular community on this, because there are communities that do both things. One, it says that if the person that you're showing this respect to, is a Torah teacher, right? And you're showing not just for example, a parent or a elder is allowed to dismiss and forgive the respect. In other words, they can say, like an elder says, "No, I don't need to stand up for me, right? Don't stand up. Don't bother standing up for me." And at which point you don't, right? But there's an
Or a
expression
teacher?
but when it comes to a Torah teacher, that they can't forgive their respect because it's not their respect to forgive. what you are respecting them not just because they gave you a great gift in teaching you Torah. You're respecting them for the Torah within them.
Wow.
They're a walking
That's
Torah
really
store.
good,
They're
Rabbi. I'm going to start doing it now because
one minute,
I take a Torah class.
one minute, because
Let him finish. Let him finish.
right. So you're respecting them. They're like a walking ark, as it were, right? A Torah ark, an Aron Kodesh that holds a Torah in it, right? So to a certain degree, because you're respecting, sure, of course, you're also respecting the fact that this person has taught you Torah, right? But you're respecting more than that. You're respecting them the Torah that resides within them, right? And to a certain degree, they cannot forgive that. It's not theirs to forgive. It's the honor and respect that the Torah deserves, right? Now, having said that, society in general has changed, and let's understand that ways of showing respect 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, definitely hundreds of years ago, are not necessarily the same way we show respect. Once upon a time, if you weren't wearing a tie, right? As a man, you were not showing respect. It was an insult, right? If you didn't take your hat off in somebody's presence or what have you. So you have to understand that things have shifted. Not to say that the responsibility to show respect has shifted, but the manifestation, the expression of said respect is not what it used to be. Which is why you see, Paula, that there are many places where if a rabbi walks into a room, you're not going to see everybody stop and get up. But that's not
It
because they
surprised
don't believe.
me. But
Yes,
what was interesting also about this is when I told Howie this story, he said how wonderful a teacher that is to have such humility.
right.
I
And so there's that other aspect that you're showing to a certain degree that the rabbi would feel that it would be it would not be understood, especially in a society that doesn't have this awareness as universally as perhaps it should, that respect is being shown to the Torah versus to him, right? And is saying, I don't want this to be made a whole whatever about
yeah,
it,
me,
right?
yeah.
And at which point, I'm asking you to respect that. I'm asking you to respect that this, for whatever, however, it would be either misinterpreted or shift focus away from where whatever it is. And so that's what I'm saying. Things don't happen in a vacuum, right?
Sure.
And if that would happen, all things being equal, as it were, one should always stand up for a rabbi, and a rabbi should not be able to forgive that, right?
Rabbi,
And
I've seen it in the Sephardic synagogue that I go to. Sometimes they always stand up and say "Kvod Harav."
yes, and I said, as ultimately, and in a Litvish yeshiva, you will definitely see that anytime what's it called walk in, and in a Chabad yeshiva, you'll never see it. Now, does that mean that Chabadniks don't respect the Torah and what it stands for? Yeah, they're willing to
No.
give up their lives for it. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just and that's what I'm saying. It's communities and their approach to how it is
Yes.
that we nowadays make that outward show of respect for
Yeah.
the Torah. Having said that, of course, for example, um, uh, in Chabad, one of the most so you would never call somebody who you respect and is in that kind of hierarchy of respect by their first name, right? So I wouldn't say our parents' first name, what have you. It's interesting that uh, the big Rabbi Schusterman is the one he's not only a Chabad rabbi, he's a Chabad Rav. That's just how we kind of make a distinction colloquially. He's a rabbi's rabbi. He's a person I turn to with my halachic dilemmas. He's a posek. He's the one who gets to actually decide on halachic matter. Um, uh, I learned that from my father, Colson. For all his halachic questions. And Rabbi Schusterman he's a big rabbi. It happens to be that now 20 something years ago, he became my father's mechutin in the fact that his son married my sister. But a person of
Is that
incredible,
Schusterman from out here, from California?
yes, it is.
Oh,
Yes.
I know them.
Yes. So Rabbi Shusterman, he's an incredibly impressive Rav. I was actually just talking to another Chabad rabbi earlier today about that. Um, uh, and so he once was calling his son-in-law's so a daughter and son-in-law's house because he had to speak to his son-in-law about something. And the grandson answered the phone. A precocious little boy, and um, his father named the son-in-law, i.e., the father of this little boy, his name was Ephraim. So he, not Ephraim. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name. Let's just say it's Ephraim for whatever it is, okay? Because I'm forgetting the name. But he had a nickname, and this is the nickname. His nickname. This family, it's the Mintz family. It's Rabbi Mintz from JLI's brother. Uh, became the son-in-law. Uh, his nickname is Fufi. Whatever reason, I don't know how that happens, but his nickname is Fufi. Among friends, his name is Fufi. So Rabbi Shusterman calls, gets his grandson on the phone, and Rabbi Shusterman's name is Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Shusterman. That's his name. And to friends of his age range, he's Yossi. Like, yeah. So Rabbi Yossi Shusterman, Rabbi Yosef Shusterman is calling his grandson. Gets his grandson in front and says, "Hi." It says, "Hello." Yeah, hi. It's Zaidi calling. Is your tati home? So he hears the little boy say, "Foofy." So the kid puts his ear back to the phone and he says, "You can't call your tati by his name. You have to say tati." So the boy goes, "Okay, oh, okay. Tati, Yossi's on the phone." So yeah,
That's
so
so
Get it.
funny.
I get it.
You know what? Rabbi Manis Friedman says that he and his siblings did not know what his parents' first names were. As a matter of fact, especially the mother, because the father never, ever spoke to his wife from another room. Like he would never say Rachel or whatever. He would never use her name. He would go up to her to say something.
yeah. I
It's
want to hear
really
our
it's amazing. But
it's beautiful.
I want to quote Rabbi Friedman for something else. He just came out with a new book, by the way, The Vulnerability of God or something. I just got it. Um, he has a whole lecture about how a relationship, a love relationship, very similar to what you were saying, but that there is fear, there's yirah in a relationship like that, and you should never forget it. If you have a person who's very, very important to you, then you are afraid that you're going to lose the relationship. You have to be a little bit afraid. That
Well, that's
very much
yes,
figures into how you treat each other.
yeah, and is the core of what we're saying over here,
Mm,
and it is one of the manifestations of that. Uh, in other words, the manifestation of the respect, not even the love, the manifestation of the respect is that
right.
awe and fear and
And
not taking for
uh-huh.
granted, et cetera, et cetera. That
Exactly.
yira is a component of a relationship, and this is what society today has to remember. The reason why, unfortunately, familiarity, we believe that if our relationship is as real as it is, it means we are as close as possibly can be, and there are no boundaries between us, and there doesn't need to be respect because we have love, blabbermices. And it's actually very dangerous, and it poisons relationships. In
Yeah.
fact, it's one of those things like we're not even sure how it happened. We just kind of fell out of. Well, you know what? We probably fell out of love because there wasn't that sense of respect, and there wasn't a sense of boundaries, and there wasn't you took this person for granted, etc. And you didn't hold this person on a pedestal as they should, like Rabbi what Mana said, right? You would never. And to me, it's a key thing, And again, it's not only in spousal relationships. You're talking about not knowing names that the parents, the kids don't
Right.
even know the parents' names. I remember we were taking our Moishala, who's having who just turned bar mitzvah, and we're having the party on the 5th. of May, and we had all the boys at a bookstore in Crown Heights, Judaica. It's called Judaica World. And we were sitting there, and they have two floors. The back of the store is stairs that go down to the second floor, and the bottom floor is just books. So the top floor has Judaica items, whatever it is, but like kind of where they keep the most of the books is downstairs. So I called out to everybody that we're going downstairs and whatever's. Maishala was too busy, off reading or looking at something, and he missed the memo, as it were. And he picked his head out of the book that he was reading, and the family was gone. At that point, he was like 7. Um, Now we had gone down. We only spent a few minutes, but at a certain point, I realized that Michael is not here. So I come
Nice.
back up the stairs. I come back up the stairs, and the owner of the store is sitting there, or the guy behind the counter, whatever it is, and he has Michael. You can see that he's a little kind of emotional. Not terribly emotional, but he's a little bit. And he's like, "This is your son, right?" So I'm like, "Yeah." I mean, Planet's is small enough so that we kind of all. Uh, he says, "You should know, you can have a little nachas from him." I'm like, why? What happened? He says, he was kind of at the door of the store, like looking out down the street. Didn't leave the store, but he's kind of looking, 7-year-old. And so I could tell that something happened. So I went over and said, "What's the problem?" And he was like starting to like get teary-eyed. And I asked him what happened. The store owner saying he asked Michael what happened, and he said that he says, I think my father and brothers left without me, and
Oh,
yeah, so he says, well, okay, no, don't worry, you're here, you're safe. Tell me who your father is, and we'll find him. I can't say my father's name.
oh,
Goodness, of course, of course. Oh,
Says,
oh, that's beautiful. That's
says, but I can,
beautiful.
but
wow.
then, but then a smart little 7-year-old says, but I can spell it for you.
Wow.
Mashallah. Hi, this is a kid, the rabbi, the little rabbi.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
But like he figured out a solution. So I can't say it, but I can spell it for you. But anyways, so
Amazing.
yeah,
So he
but
was gonna spell Alexander.
I probably said and then if it got to the last name, by that point I would have been able to make it all the way back from lunch and whatever But either way, the point is that uh, the parsha, even in its opening. Now, why is this so important? Because the two sons of Aaron, Moshe, when he was consoling Aaron about the loss of his two sons, said, "Hu asher amar Hashem." This is what God said when He meant bikrovai ekadesh. This was a callback. Moshe is doing a callback to something that got earlier in the Torah, where God, when the Mishkan was being built, God said the words "bikrovai ekadesh." With those that are closest to me, I will be sanctified. And Moshe, in consoling Aaron, says, "Remember when God said those words? I had assumed Moshe, that God was referring to me and you, Aaron. But ultimately, He was referring to your two sons, that they were even closer to God than we were, and that His name was sanctified with these two, because in the loss of their life, they demonstrated the word akadesh also means, and this is important. How many of you know that the word kadosh does not mean holy? What is the literal meaning of the word kadosh?
Separate.
Separated.
Hmm.
That we learn boundaries. And these two sons of Aaron, what they did not have, and therefore what the lesson that had to be learned through them, was that healthy sense of boundaries. They knew they were going to lose their life. They knew that this was going to cost them their physical life. You can't merge with pure godliness and expect to walk out intact.
But it was so, in a sense, it was so disrespectful what the sons did.
That was the problem. It was disrespectful, not because they were being belligerent.
Right,
It was
right. But they
disrespectful.
figured they knew better.
No, it wasn't even that they knew better. They couldn't help themselves. They just wanted to get lost in godliness. It's like that parent that grabs the child's face and kisses it all over. So even though I know that you're squirming, you don't want it. I need to kiss you. I need to be with you, God. I don't care if ultimately that's what you want from me. I need to be with you. It's love without the respect.
But what about all the students of Rabbi Akiva who had to give advice? They had to, couldn't
Without
stop
the respect,
themselves.
which is why this project very good. You actually, yeah, Jerry, you just pulled a Paulo on me over here. you teed up that other thing. It says, why is this parsha so particularly apropos at this point? Because we have an epidemic, a historical epidemic of this problem of love without respect. Rabbi Akiva, who was the paragon of love your fellow as you love yourself, right? That he said is the most important line of the Torah. Somehow his students, it says, were the ones who all wiped out in the span of 1 month. 24,000 of them, on an average of nearly 1,000 a day, died in an epidemic. And why? Because they did not show respect one for the other. It doesn't say they didn't love each other. They loved each other because they were students and disciples of Rabbi Akiva. They loved each other more than probably anybody else did. But the problem was that love does not automatically mean respect. In fact, turns out that love ends up making it more acute, makes one more acutely aware if there is a lack of respect. Because if we're not in love, then we keep a distance anyways. So it could either be because of respect or because I just don't. But when you love someone, so that is a magnet and it draws you near. But there should be some sort of healthy boundaries of respect and awe, putting that person on a pedestal, treating them with a respect that if you don't have it, you become acutely aware of this issue, or it becomes an acute issue, is what it becomes. And with the sons of students of Rabbi Akiva, we said what happened was each one of them is unique, and each one of them was brilliant, and each one of them had their own perspective. And Rabbi Akiva would teach something profound and deep, and each one of them would have their own takeaway. And each one, because they loved their fellow student, felt that they needed to share with them and correct their mistaken understanding. Now, if they had respect, they would say, I have one approach, you have another approach, and I can respect that. But like we kind of see in society today, where there's not respect. Mine is the only valid approach, and if you don't have my approach, you're wrong. Now, either you're wrong, so I don't need you, and I'll walk away. But if I really love you and I believe you're wrong, then what do I got to do?
Convince
I
you.
got to hound you until
Yeah.
you learn the right way.
Yeah.
Right? And what happens if the other person thinks the exact same thing about you? So now the problem's in duplicate. So love without respect can lead to tremendous, tremendous problems in all types of relationships. And the students amongst themselves, among the spouses, the parents, children, parents, etc. Love is not enough. In fact, if there is an abundant amount of love, it makes the necessity for respect and boundaries and all the more. And we can all figure out how that translates in our daily life, but especially with Yiddishkeit. You don't get to determine the parameters of Judaism just because you're in quote unquote love with God. There is halacha. There's the rules, there's the do's, and there's the don'ts. Al yavo b'cholei telekodesh. You don't just get to decide how you want to do Judaism because you're so in love with God and so he will for sure understand. That's being disrespectful to God and to Judaism. And ultimately, obviously, to yourself and your soul. Yes, Paul.
Look at the death of Rabbi Akiva's students with a different nuance. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
I think
I
it's
respect you for having such an opinion. Let's go. Carry on.
and I love you for saying that. Okay. All right.
Go ahead.
I think it's the difference between giving rebuke and shaming.
Mm-hmm.
I think that these students crossed over from rebuke into shaming. And shaming.
So I don't think we disagree, Paula. more the probative nature of what I was saying earlier is why? Why, if they are the students of Rabbi Akiva,
Would they do that? Right.
whose greatest ideal is love your fellow as you love yourself, could you be susceptible to go from rebuke to shaming if you're his
Shaming
student and
someone.
to hold that ideal above all things?
I mean,
Because
surely they knew about halbanat
Well,
panim and
one
what a
second.
horrible sin.
Yes, correct.
I
So, right,
just, I
exactly.
just, sadly, I believe, unfortunately, that this is one of those aspects of human nature over which we need to be vigilant. It's not easy.
Sure.
I,
No, but I'm saying that
everybody,
these were
everybody makes these students of Rabbi Akiva to be villains. I, I don't take it that strongly. I can't. It's too human. It's
sure.
wrong. It's shaming. Trust me, I know about this. It
Right, but
needs to be fixed.
right. No, no, no. And I agree entirely. And I'm actually trying to create those connective dots. How does somebody who's supposed to be, and if it was just one person, you can say, okay, fluke, they just lost. All the students fell prey to this same thing, which seems to be antithetical to the very ideal that their Rebbe says is the most important one. No, it turns out that when you have love without the respect, in other words, they did fully embrace the ideal of their and practice it to the fullest extent. But they were missing a key ingredient that is absolutely necessary. In fact, more necessary when love is at full blast. Because Paula, who are the people that oftentimes we shame the most? Not only inadvertently, sometimes advertently. People that we get
I think it's the
frustrated
people
with the
we
most.
care, the people we care about.
Right. And what is missing that allows us to do that to the people we care about? It's not necessarily love that's missing.
It's the respect. Okay, how do how do you say?
Understanding the process. There, there's a procedure, and there are boundaries to that procedure. And if you go beyond those boundaries and you move from rebuke to shaming, you you've destroyed rather than helped to build.
Without a doubt. And we're saying, how does a person become susceptible? If you truly love this person, why are you willing to shame them?
If I
What
knew
is
the
missing?
answer to that, my life would be very different.
No, but I'm saying, Apollo, this is what we're doing here is we're showing something. Does it mean that the love is false and fake? And that's why, no, because it seems to be strange that I end up shaming these people that I have more feeling for than I do to the people that I don't. And I have this right about them. I'm more invested, like negative emotions, more strongly associated. Like I'm not going to feel a need to shame this person, but I will. There are times where and obviously it's a mistake and it's wrong. I don't do it because I believe it's the correct thing to do, but I find myself falling into this trap more
Right,
readily with the people I love. Why? What's missing? Because it's not because you love them less that allows you to shame them. It's because
right,
there's the love, but what a deficiency in that moment, not as a general rule, but in that moment
right,
in the respect.
right.
And that's what we're saying. Why were the students of Rabbi Kiva specifically the ones who failed at this? It wasn't because they were not listening to their of when he says a love. They were, and they got that message loud and clear, and they were practicing it, and they were still missing something key that actually made their love to a certain degree create a more acute issue when they weren't coupling that with a commensurate amount of respect that allows them to get very frustrated, right? Why? Why are you being an idiot? Why will you not listen? I'm trying to help you because I love you and I care about you, and you're stubborn. You stubborn mendrick, right? Right? And it all comes because I truly love this person.
Right.
But I'm not showing them the respect that says, hey, wait a minute, maybe they're saying something right, and I should be the one listening. Or maybe they're allowed to have an opinion that's different than mine, right? As much as I
But
want to impose my opinion because
but
impose my
Rabbi
goodness on
Akiva
them.
never told them. Rabbi Akiva never said everybody's allowed to their own opinion, not once
Of
in all the
course he
years.
did, and the way these things work is like, yeah, 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 sure, 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 but right. We're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. Uh, yes, Julia.
The example of Mendele uh, brings to mind the question of what the difference is between saying your name or spelling it, insofar as there's actually no difference. So and insofar as saying your name is in no way disrespectful to you, it just concerns me. The larger question has to do with form versus substance, and that brings me to a much more complicated question regarding the role of psychology in everything that you are just talking about. Because obviously, there are times when there's both love and respect, and there are mental illness issues that, and I say this not abstractly. We all have experience with this sort of thing, and a person blurts out something negative to the people whom he or she knows are not going to hurt them back. But there is an almost irrepressible, because again, it's a complex psychological element. So, to what extent, and I'll end with this, does it matter what God knows about our intentions in the way that He punishes us or rewards us? Or to what extent is that even the issue? Or is it rather whether we think that we respect or not?
So the answer is it's ultimately always what was actually what the truth is, and obviously thank God that our judge happens to be one that can read our hearts and minds
Well,
and know.
exactly.
All right. Now, having
Yeah.
said that, we have to do our best to
Right.
nail it, to nail it. And what that means is, why did my son not say my name but belong to his brother? Because he was taught that in society, this is the way we show. So respect. Now, that's why I was making a point. That happens to be that in Hasidic society, you actually refer to your Rosh Yeshiva, to the person, right, that you must respect by his first name. You just put the Reb before it. You knew our Rosh Yeshiva as Reb Yechiel,
Uh,
not Rabbi,
uh,
not Rabbi Kalmanson. That would have been almost an insult. Rabbi Kalman's and Rabbi Chiel, because there was a closeness in Torah, et cetera, et cetera. We're all it would be speaking to his humility, et cetera, et cetera. And to the Rabbi Kalman to refer to him as Rabbi Kalman, so almost like he needs to be put on like he needs and desires to be put on a pedestal. No, he is like the rest of us, toiling in the traces of Torah learning, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to go into the sensibilities because
sure.
in the other communities you should absolutely say what's it called? Rabbi comments, and it's interesting because he was in his son is in a different yeshiva, teaches in he's known as Rabbi Chiel, and his son is known as Rabbi Comments. So it's just
Interesting.
about it's about and that's the point. It's about sensibilities. He was saying, to the best of my understanding, the way I show my father respect is not by saying his name, even outside of his presence or whatever it is. And I told him, listen, Maishala, next time you're in that kind of situation, and I'm not there, not my presence, you say my name so you can get whatever it is taken care of. But it was just that sense that, and that was ultimately the reason why it's it's a heartwarming story, is because even in a moment of like him feeling or whatever it is, he didn't say all bets are off. Now I'll do whatever I need to do. I'll throw the respect for my father out the window because I need to go. And even as a 7-year-old, he says, even as I'm feeling a little bit lost, right, and a little bit unanchored, whatever it is, still I have a principle, and the principles don't immediately get thrown out, and that's
Amazing.
important. It's as a principled thing at the age of 7, right? And this is part of, I think, the ultimate message of one of the messages of this parsha is the other kind of incredibly situation is not where I'm in a state of like by him, a state of anxiety or whatever it is, but a state of love, right? And I just want to run into the Holy of Holies and give God a kiss. No, sorry, no. And so Julie, I think a lot of it does come down ultimately to the ways that that was my point. Those could be subjective, right? In terms of, do we stand up now? Do we use first names? Do we not? Well, how does society today define, proper society, not like nottish society, not like we're not talking about Instagram society, right? When we're talking about proper society with gravitas and whatever it is, how is it that this society shows proper respect? And understand that yes, it is the sensibility that matters rather than the particulars, how what have you, having and God is aware of what is in our heart, and so somebody doesn't know that you should stand up and show respect. Somebody's just new, say a fresh person in the synagogue, but he wants it, he's loving it. And there's a story about a gentleman who used to have his wife bake two challahs and put it in the Aron Kodesh every week for God to bring an offering. Since the temple was destroyed, nobody's bringing offerings. He's bringing his offering to God. And he did it with such simplicity and purity that when the Rav said later found him doing it, said, "What are you doing? Right? What are you crazy? You think God eats challah? Right? And stopped it. He had a dream that night with the Rav, where an angel came to him, to the Rav, and said, "Go ask forgiveness from this person, because since the destruction of the temple, God has not had so much pleasure from something as much as the two challahs of this man given with such a pure heart." So ultimately, it's balanced like everything else in the balance. It's a balance of what the societal manifestation, the outward manifestation is, and the feeling that exists in your heart. But you have to make sure that that's what we're saying about the relationship too, that it is a balance. The feeling of love that you have in your heart with the protocols and boundaries as defined in Judaism, and you need to show respect even as you show love. All right, everybody?
Beautiful. Beautiful. And I do hope to see you on Shabbos this week.
All right, very good. We hope to see you as well. Good Shabbos, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.